President, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
You know, I've asked this question, the same first question, to all the candidates I've interviewed this year, and that is this. What do you think is the most important issue facing the country right now?
So many, so important, but we have to straighten out the economy. We're going to do that through inflation. We have to straighten out our border where we have millions of people pouring in, and we're going to do that very quickly. I had the safest border in the history of our country, and now we have the most unsafe, I think, anywhere in the world. There's never been anything like it. We have to strengthen up our military. Giving $85 billion to Afghanistan didn't exactly help, but we have to strengthen up our military, get the woke out of our military, and basically respect all over the world. We don't have it anymore. We had tremendous respect 3 years ago. We don't have respect anymore. They don't listen to us. They don't care about us. They just don't do what we want them to do and what they have to do, especially since we make life very good for many countries. And we have to get that respect back. And if we don't, we've got some big problems.
We asked viewers to send in questions on social media. We had a ton of responses. Here's one of them. Erica tweets this. What is the first thing you will do to turn this country around if you get elected?
Well, I do two simultaneously. I'd start drilling. We have the most liquid gold under our feet, oil, than any other country, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. And that's going to bring down the pressure on inflation. And we're going to have very little inflation very soon. We had virtually none when I was president. And second, I'd close up the border, because we can't have prisoners and people from mental institutions coming into our country. They're emptying out from all over the world, not just from the 3 or 4 countries we talk about, the neighboring countries all over the world. They're coming into our country at levels that nobody's ever seen before, Bret, and we have to stop it. And they are emptying out their prisons, and they're emptying out their mental institutions and insane asylums into the U.S., and we're not a dumping ground. I would stop it immediately and get a lot of the bad ones out. We'd get them out very quickly.
Fox viewers were able to watch your speech here at Bedminster.
They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom.
The day of your arrest and...
Can you believe it?
Federal
arrest by my opponent.
Appearance in federal court in Miami.
Right.
And your explanation of the Presidential Records Act and your defense, how you and others believe that that applies here. Obviously, you know, other legal experts, your Attorney General Bill Barr, they do not think that that applies to handling classified national security and defense materials. But that legal battle aside, I just want to ask you a couple of specifics. Why did you have this very sensitive national security defense documents, like the war plans for a strike on Iran?
So like every other president, I take things out. And in my case, I took it out pretty much in a hurry, but people packed it up and we left. And I had clothing in there. I had all sorts of personal items in there, much stuff. And by the way, when Bill Barr, who's, you know, a coward, Bill Barr was a coward. Bill Barr didn't do what he was supposed to do. I fired him, and he has great hatred, and that's okay, because some people do. And some people love me very much. He didn't resign. I asked him, give me a letter immediately, because he didn't have the courage to go after so many different things, and you and I have discussed it before. But he was a coward. And he obviously doesn't like me too much, and there are a lot of people that don't, and there are a lot of people that feel just the opposite.
But on the specific on the documents.
Let me just explain.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of things in there. I will go through those boxes. I have to go through those boxes. I take out personal things. As far as the levels and all, everything was declassified because I had the right to declassify. You want to talk about a mess, take a look at Biden, where he's got 1,850 boxes. He has boxes stored in Chinatown in D.C. He has boxes stored at Penn Center, and he has boxes under his Corvette and around his Corvette sitting in a garage for years where it was very seriously classified. I have every right to have those boxes. This is purely a Presidential Records Act. This is not a criminal thing. In fact, the New York Times of all had a story just the other day that the only way NARA could ever get this stuff, this back, would be please, could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
Because they have no, we
they
were
did
talking.
Ask for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
can you
them
give the
some,
documents back?
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
Which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And
but why not just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but
I've been
according to
very,
the
very
indictment,
busy.
you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things, golf shirts, clothing, pants, shoes. There were many things. I would say
Iran war
much more, not that I know of, but everything was declassified. And Biden didn't have the right to do that because he wasn't president. Nor did Mike Pence, by the way, have the right to do that because he wasn't president.
All right, I'm not going to belabor this.
No, but Brett, when you look at
want to
this,
just get to the
other
specifics.
presidents, when they leave, they take the papers. They have thousands and thousands. Obama had it. Nixon had it. Carter had
Their
it. The
argument
Bushes
is that
had
these
it.
are super sensitive national security documents. All right, so here's,
I'm sure you'll
this
see
is-
real super sensitive that Biden has, because
This is-
Biden has far more than anybody's ever kept.
And he turned them over when
No,
asked.
he
but-
didn't.
but
He
that's
still
what he
hasn't given
says.
the 1,850 boxes that's stored at the University of Delaware. In fact, they're fighting them in court,
Right.
and they're fighting them. And
But he
the
opened
boxes,
up for them to look at it.
excuse me, the boxes from Chinatown, he didn't turn them over. He sent them up to his lawyer in Boston to look at before they handed them over.
And their special counsel is looking at that, and we'll see what comes out of
Well,
it. But
you
I
can
do want to
imagine-
just
you can
end with
imagine
this. I
what's
don't want to
going
dwell on it. But according to the indictment, you were here at Bedminster on July 21st, 2021, after you're no longer president, and you were recorded saying that you had a document detailing a plan of attack on another country that was prepared by the U.S. military for you when you were president, the Iran attack plan. You remember that?
Ready?
You were recorded.
It wasn't a document.
Okay.
I had lots of paper. I had copies of newspaper articles. I had copies of magazines.
I know.
I
This
had
is
copies of
specifically a
everything.
quote. You're quoted
And
on the
I know-
recording saying the document was secret, adding that you could have declassified it while you were president, but, quote, now I can't. You know this is still secret, highly confidential. And the indictment cites the recording and the testimony from people in the room saying you showed it to people there that day. So you say on this, on
It
tape,
says just the opposite.
that you can't
And let me just
declassify it,
tell
so
you,
why have it? is
When
what
I
the question
said
is.
when I said that I couldn't declassify it now, that's because I wasn't president. I never made any bones about that. When I'm not president, I can't declassify.
And that's what you said. You
I
didn't
said
declassify it.
that. I said no. I said I couldn't.
I could have
but that wasn't a
declassified it.
document, Brett. There was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else talking about Iran and other things. And it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se. There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories, and articles.
I'm just saying what the indictment says.
Well,
the
these
recording
people-
and the
look,
people in the room who
These
testified.
people are very dishonest people. They're thugs. They're thugs. If you look at what they've done to other people, what they've done to, and overturned in the U.S. Supreme Court, these are thugs.
The
These are
suggestion
dishonest
was that
people.
you wanted this as evidence that the military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, had preemptively sent you plans for a possible attack on Iran, and that you didn't order that to happen. That's the
I
suggestion.
never ordered it to happen. No.
But that's
No.
why you wanted the document.
I don't think I've ever seen a document from Milley. Milley, frankly, was incompetent. The last one I'd want to attack with as my leader would be Milley. That I can tell you.
All
and
right,
I think
last
you
thing
know
on
that.
this. There are 31 documents listed. Nuclear capabilities of foreign countries, related to military capabilities of foreign countries, intelligence briefings on foreign countries. Why do you want to hold on to those documents after you're president?
I don't say I do.
You just didn't know
We
what was
were
in the boxes?
discussing with NARA, giving them back. All of a sudden, we've got raided, which is a violation of my, Fourth Amendment rights. They raided my home, and they came in and they took things. We were discussing this with NARA. Look at Obama, look at Clinton. Clinton took documents, Clinton took tapes in his socks. And
Interviews
you know
with
what
a
happened?
historian.
The Clinton socks case.
I do know it well.
And it basically said the president has every right to keep whatever he wants, and that includes me.
And the question
This
is
was
whether
not a criminal case. Let me tell
highly
you,
classified government national security documents fall in that
I
category,
can-
and that battle is going to be fought in the courts.
it's already been fought.
All right.
There's a decision strongly that you can keep. But I wouldn't have kept. But they raided my house. They came in and raided. We were discussing, having very good discussions with NARA, a radical left group, by the way. And all of a sudden, my house got raided.
Do you know if you still have any highly sensitive government documents?
No, I don't have anything, no.
Okay.
But what I'm concerned about, they took everything, right? I don't know what they took. They could be stuffing it. I don't know what they put in there. And we wanted to be there when they were taking. They wouldn't let anybody in the room. They've never treated a president like this.
And that's fair for you to point out. I guess what this points to is this recording where you said you could have declassified it when you were president. You didn't.
No,
so
I
it's
could
still
have
classified.
when I was president, but there's no document there. Those were newspaper articles.
Okay.
They were copies of articles and magazines. There was no document there. And I couldn't have done it after I was out.
This is what you said in 2016 about handling this.
In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law. We also need to fight this battle by collecting intelligence and then protecting our classified secrets. We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence says he's, quote, deeply troubled by what's in the indictment. And he says, quote, the indictment contains serious charges and I cannot defend what's alleged.
Mike Pence had documents that were classified.
And he turned them over.
No, he didn't turn them over. He got caught. His lawyers found some documents, and then he turned them over. Why did he have them? He shouldn't be saying that because he had classified documents. And immediately they said, oh, that's okay. And I suppose it's going to be okay with Biden, too, even though he has them in Chinatown, even though he has them in Delaware, and probably 100 times more than I have.
So you're not worried about this case?
Based on the law, zero. Zero. Presidential Records Act, plus the Clinton case, which was won by Clinton as president because he took tapes of leaders in his socks. Zero.
Okay.
Zero. And every good lawyer has said it, and you've seen that. Every good lawyer has said that.
Obviously, there are others
You know what
who push back. And
this was a weaponization of politics. This was a weaponization of the White House. This was a horrible thing. A candidate that's leading, I'm leading Biden by a lot, they go out and they weaponize. This is a horrible thing that was done.
Well, let's talk about the politics.
It's never been done.
Let's talk about the politics. You're facing, obviously, a number of potential charges in other cases, and I know you've said that you believe that they're political witch hunts.
Of course.
But what do you say to the voter who really liked many of your policies?
They still do.
But they can't handle the scandals or the controversies or the name-calling or the vitriol. What do you say to that voter who's worried that that all leads to a general election loss?
So based on the polls, I'm leading Biden by a lot. Based on the polls, I'm leading all of the Republicans by a lot, by 40 points and more. Right now, I have the best polls I've ever had. People see this stuff for what it is. It's a political witch hunt. It's a continuation.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch. Those voters
They
usually make up all the difference in the election. And so to the female independent voter in the suburbs who struggled with family financing because of inflation, she's now against Biden, disapproves of Biden, but wasn't with you in 2020 and so far is a hard no for you in 2024. But what do you say to that?
Looking at the right polls.
What do you say to that female independent suburban voter who feels that way, to win her back?
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that this,
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, you take a look at Truth to Vote, where they have people stuffing the ballot boxes on tapes, or
Mr. President,
let's go to recent. Well, wait a minute. Let's go to recent. FBI Twitter. Let's go to recent. The 51 agents, all corrupt stuff, Brett.
Understand about the Hunter Biden,
no, but
all
that's cheating
fair
on the
things.
election.
But
that's cheating on the election.
you lost the 2020 election.
Brett, you take a look at all of the stuffed ballots. You take a look at all of the things, including things like the 51 intelligence agents.
There were recounts in all of the swing states. There was not significant widespread
We're trying
fraud.
to get recounts, real recounts, not just
investigations,
numbers of votes
widespread
cast.
corruption. There was not a sense of that. There were lawsuits, more than 50 of them, by your lawyers, some in front of judges that you appointed.
Look at Wisconsin.
That came out with no evidence.
Wisconsin has practically admitted it was rigged. Other states are doing the same right now, and it's continuing on.
There have been
It was
reviews
a
of
rigged
every
election.
potential case of voter fraud in ran 6 battleground states, and they found fewer than 475 cases.
You know why?
that
Because
were
they
not
didn't
affected.
look at the right things.
Okay,
Brett.
are you going to be...
They were counting ballots, not the authenticity of the ballot. The ballots were fake ballots. This was a very rigged
Are you
election.
going to go, this is how you're going to tell that independent suburban woman voter
No,
to vote for
we're
you?
off to winning an election, and I think we're winning very well. I got a poll just recently. I have it here.
No, I know. And I watched the numbers.
I've shown you every poll. I showed you we were leading by tremendous numbers, and we're
polls
leading
change.
with women, huh?
You know polls change. I mean, they changed in 2016 to your favor.
I thought I was doing well from the beginning, but you know.
But they changed, the
Yeah.
polls. What did you learn from your first term that you took from, and changes that you would make if you get elected?
I would like to be less combative, but I find the press is extremely dishonest. And if I'm not combative, I don't get my word across. If I'm not combative, I don't know. I don't think you could win. I think, regardless me or somebody else, if somebody else got the nomination, these radical left maniacs would come after them at a level like you've never seen before, and they're not going to be able to withstand it. Our country is sick. It's sick. We have people that will do anything, and it's a very sad thing, like the document hoax. They should have never been brought. We're in the middle of a political campaign, and they want to arrest the opponent who's leading the person that's, in theory, in charge of government. This stuff shouldn't happen.
So what changes would you make?
Strong people, strong government. You know, when I came down to Washington, I was in Washington 17 times in my life in D.C. And I never stayed overnight. I was never there. I didn't know the people. I didn't know that world, other than I was involved in politics from the other side very much. And I put great people in, but I put some people like Bill Barr and Bolton and a few of them that, you know, actually Bolton was good because every time I negotiated, people said, oh, they've got this maniac here. He's going to go to war with us, and they'd concede every point. I mean, it was actually pretty good in a certain way. But we put people in that were great, and we put people in that weren't. I now know Washington probably better than anybody. I know the good ones and the bad ones, and we will have really great, strong people. I already know who they are, but we will have really great, strong people.
Okay. In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we
time-
had tremendous, look, we had the best economy we've ever had.
This
the world
time-
has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second Defense Secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Because I hired 10 to 1 that were fantastic. We had a great economy. We had phenomenal people in charge of the economy. We had phenomenal people in the military. I'm not a fan of Milley, and I'm not a fan of certain of the television people. But I knocked out ISIS. I defeated ISIS. They said, Mattis, it would take 3 years, and I don't think we can do it. I did it in a period of like 4 weeks.
There's a lot of people who praise you for your policies. I just said that.
That's true. Well, I mean, you just went through a list. But don't forget, for every one you say, I had 10 that love us. And one thing happens, I find, with me that I think didn't happen so much with other presidents. Call it glamorous time, call it whatever. But with me, the Times, the Washington Post, various people, even Fox, because, you know, I'm no great fan of Fox anymore. They fought me very hard. Well, you've got to get your word out somehow, right? They fought me very hard in 2016, very much the way they're fighting me now, very, very hard. And I won. Then they became very nice. But I will tell you that something happens when people leave. They can like me very much. I have this woman named Alyssa Farah. She said the greatest things. Long after she left, he's the greatest president we've ever had. He was unbelievable, unbelievable. Then The View offered her a contract. But obviously, only if she changed her views. And all of a sudden, she can say negative things. Money gets offered to people, and some people change.
But there's
I will
people
say
on that list that are not taking money that decided that they're not
for the most part,
you.
they are. You know, Barr did a book. Barr was a coward. The name people that you name, for every person you name, I can name 20 people that loved the administration. And maybe more importantly, the voters love the administration. The voters are dying to get back to it, Bret. The voters are tired of being laughed at all over the world. We're run by a fool. We're run by a man that doesn't have a clue.
I want to talk about foreign policy, but just to leave this, you have former senior advisor Steve Cortes saying it's going to be tough for you to get the best and the brightest because of some of the name-calling of people who left.
Well,
so
again,
what do you say to that?
Cortes is a nice person, but I didn't give him the job he wanted because I didn't think he was qualified. Then he went over to the Sanctimonious's camp. I didn't give him the job. So I'd probably say the same kind of thing if I wouldn't get a job, if somebody wants a job. And a lot of the people that you mentioned there, they didn't get the job. A couple of them weren't made permanent. I didn't want to make them permanent because I didn't think they were good enough. Now, during the course of that 4 years, I know the best people. Remember this. We took out ISIS. We developed Space Force. I rebuilt the military. I got the largest tax cuts in history. I got the largest regulation cuts in history. I did right to try so that people don't have to die without a chance. We could use space-age medical knowledge, and we have the greatest labs in the world. I did all of these things and much, much more. Nobody's ever seen it like that. One other thing. Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. China would never be talking about even the concept of going into Taiwan. Would have never happened. I was getting out of Afghanistan. We would have gotten out through dignity and strength. Instead, it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. These are all great things, and people want them back.
Mr. President, stand by if you would. Please join us after this break for the second part of the interview tonight. Welcome back to Bedminster and Special Report, joined again by the 45th President of the United States.
We do not support Taiwan independence.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. You've been very critical towards Biden administration policy toward China. Today, Blinken said this: "We do not support Taiwan independence." Should Taiwan be independent?
So if I tell you an answer, it's going to hurt me in negotiations on the assumption that I win. But I have a very good relationship with President Xi. After COVID came in, I sort of didn't want the relationship, and I sort of ended the relationship after having made one of the greatest trade deals ever made, including USMCA, Mexico, Canada. But I made deals with Japan, I made deals with many countries. We had the worst trade deals, now we have the best trade deals. By the way, USMCA, Canada, and Mexico, it's so good because we replaced NAFTA, which everybody said, you even said, be impossible to end it. I got it terminated by Congress, actually, and got USMCA. It's so good now that Mexico and Canada, Mexico, well, it's a long time ago, but Mexico and Canada, it's so good they want to renegotiate the deal. I hope they don't do that. I hope we don't agree to that. But I made the best trade deal with China, $50 billion a year, where they have to buy from us. I got $28 billion from China to give to our farmers because our farmers were treated badly.
So would you keep the China tariffs on?
I would keep the China tariffs on.
What would take them off?
No, I'd keep them on, absolutely. It's a tremendous power thing. You keep them on. China was dying over the tariffs. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. No other president has ever taken 10 cents. I watched Gordon Chang the other night say the only one that was tough on China, so tough that frankly he couldn't believe it, was Donald Trump.
So the question is, would you, if China invaded Taiwan, would you go to war to defend Taiwan?
I don't want to say that because that hurts me in negotiations with regard to President Xi. Now, he knows what I do. And by the way, for 4 years, they didn't invade Taiwan, and they never even talked about it. You'll find very few discussions about it. And for 4 years, Russia never even thought about it because Putin and I had a very good relationship, business relationship, but I got along with him and he got along with me despite the phony Russia witch hunt, which made it much more difficult. Having that phony Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton witch hunt for 2.5 years going on made it much more difficult. Despite that, he knew he could not go into Ukraine. I told him very strongly, you can't do it. And if you do it, it's going to be a problem. And he never did.
I want to talk about Ukraine, but just to end on China, this weekend, President Biden, speaking of that Chinese spy balloon, said this.
I think it was more embarrassing than it was intentional.
What do you think about that?
I think it's such a stupid
What would you
statement.
have done?
He doesn't know what he's... They wouldn't have ever had a spy balloon if I was president. There wouldn't be a spy balloon over our country. That spy balloon was going right over our nuclear sites, taking pictures. And we killed it after it was leaving. It was going back home to China, wherever it was going. But we shot it down over the ocean after it had done all of its work. You know, they don't keep it on the balloon and then you pick it up. That stuff is sent back to China instantaneously as it's taken. So a statement like that is so stupid. They've taken pictures of every one of our nuclear facilities in the Midwest, where we have a lot, where they know better than anybody that we have a lot.
And you're saying that wouldn't happen under you?
They wouldn't have ever done it, no. They wouldn't have ever done it, no. President Xi and I had a very strong relationship, just like I did with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Look, when I took office, everyone assumed we were going to war with North Korea, including President Obama. He said, the single biggest problem we have in the world today is North Korea. I said, have you called him? And I got sort of a mixed answer. The answer is he did call, but Kim Jong-un wouldn't see them, okay? Tough guy, smart guy, tough guy. I got along with him, and there was no threat. I did an amazing job. That would have been a war. If Obama would have stayed, or if Hillary Clinton would have been in, a little bit longer, if they would have extended his term miraculously, but if Hillary Clinton would have gone, you would have had a nuclear war with North Korea. And by the way, you're possibly very close right now. This is the most dangerous time in the history of our country. You're possibly very close to having a nuclear war with Russia.
All right, let's talk about Russia. You said you would end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours.
That's right.
Your GOP opponents, well, they don't believe that. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said this. Despite how ridiculous that is to say, I suspect he would try to do it by turning Ukraine over to Putin and Russia. How would you do that?
Okay, ready? Number one, Chris Christie, who I know very well, he got out of New Jersey after the Bridgegate scandal, which was a mess. He got out of New Jersey with a 9% approval rating, and most people say it was less than that, okay? No, he wouldn't be the right guy to do it, but I am. I got along with Zelensky very well because he came up with the impeachment hoax #1. He come up, you know what he said? No, I wasn't threatened at all. I don't even know what you're talking about. When they said, were you threatened by President Trump? He was very good. He could have grandstanded and said, well, I felt a little bit threatened. No, he wasn't threatened at all. And he said it very loud and clear. Got along with him very well. I respected him for that. Because frankly, he could have done a grandstand and, you know, maybe look good, maybe look bad. I don't know, but he could have done something different. He said, I was never threatened. That was a very nice conversation. I called him up to congratulate him. And with Putin, I have a very good relationship. I mean, I haven't spoken to him in a long while, but I had a very strong relationship with Putin.
But was he wrong to invade Ukraine?
He wouldn't have done it if it were me.
But
He did that
move.
after I left. I thought he might do it. Look, I talked to him. I said, if you do it, there's going to be hell to pay. It's going to be a catastrophe. Don't do it. He said, no, 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 you won't do that. I told him I was going to do something. He said, no, 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 you will not do that. I said, I will, Vladimir, I will do it. I'm going to do it. And you know what? He didn't believe me. Whatever. It was pretty bad. And he didn't believe me at all, except for maybe 10%. And 10% is all you needed. There was no threat. It was only after I left that you started hearing about this.
But you believe
I will
Ukraine
tell
is
you,
a separate country from Russia.
Yeah, right. It's a separate country,
And so
but at
should
one
Putin-
point it wasn't a separate
Right.
country.
Should Putin
and
have
and
Crimea?
Putin liked it that way better.
Is that part of the deal? Should Putin get Crimea? Is that what you?
Right now, I don't talk about those deals because it really would impede a negotiation. But I'm telling you, within 24 hours, that's what I did. I became very rich by doing deals, very rich. And you know what? Much more so than people even understand. And that's what I do. I would have a deal done in 24 hours from the time we started. And I would tell Zelensky something, and I would tell Putin something, and I'd get him into a room, and I'd tell him again and again. I would have a deal done very quickly. And you know what? The death would stop, and the destruction would stop. Because look, Ukraine has been wiped out.
Under your administration, the U.S. did not go to war.
That's right. First time in 78
Can you
years.
see a scenario where you would go to war if Iran, for example, got a nuclear weapon?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, we would have had a great deal with Iran. I was getting very close to Iran. We would have had a deal done with Iran within 2 weeks after the election. They wouldn't have had a nuclear weapon, and they would have been very happy. Everybody would have been happy. I terminated that horrible thing called the Iran nuclear deal, one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen. I've seen some dumb ones. NAFTA was bad. They were all bad. The dumbest one was the Iran nuclear deal, where billions of dollars in cash was brought over to Iran in Boeing 757s and just handed billions, cash, green, I mean green cash. Remember one thing about that deal, it expired in a short period of time. You know, it expired. And that gave them an open road to having nuclear weapons. You know, people thought like this Iran nuclear deal that was done by Obama was like a good deal. It was so terrible. But remember this, it expired in just about now. It expired. And once it expired, they had the right to do anything. I terminated that deal, was on my way to making an unbelievable deal where they don't have nuclear weapons. The other thing I think, doing very well with China and Russia, getting rid of nuclear weapons. I was making a lot of progress on that until the election.
And you think that's all gone away?
I think it can come back, but it certainly went away quickly.
One of the people,
because
one of the
this current
countries.
administration doesn't have the capability to do it. They don't have the capability to do it. They don't have a clue. The Chinese, very smart. This is a very smart country. They own us. Until I came along, they just owned every president, including presidents that I liked. But remember this, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars. I put a 50% tax on a tariff on, tax or tariff, you can call it either one, but I put a tariff on steel. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't have any steel mills. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't have washing machines in the United States being made anymore.
One of the countries that's very concerned, obviously, about Iran and its nuclear ambitions is Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
What do you make of the Biden administration policy to Saudi Arabia?
I think it's terrible. We've lost Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, they're friends of mine. They're great people. The crown prince and the king, I got along with them incredibly good. They would do anything. They are great, great people. But they've actually gone over to China now, if you think about it. Think of it. It was even unthinkable. If somebody suggested it during my administration, nobody would take it even seriously. Saudi Arabia's really gone over to China. China's protecting them now. We have lost Saudi Arabia. Biden goes over and does a fist pump with the king. Now he's the king, the future king of Saudi Arabia. You know what a fist pump is? Don't touch my hands because they're dirty. So he tells him, don't touch my hands because your hands are dirty. Let's do a fist pump. And he does a fist pump. Do you know how insulted they were by that? Look, we have people that are stupid running our country. This is the most dangerous time in the history, in my opinion, in the history of our country, in the history of the world, because of the power of weaponry. This is the most unbelievably dangerous time because of nuclear weapons and other things, by the way. We have incompetent people running our country in the most dangerous time. Now, little articles come out, little articles just like two sentences long, that they spotted Russia sending nuclear weapons to Belarus. Little article, like 2 sentences. I said, that's a big thing. See, that's a big thing. That's so big. Can't allow that to happen. That's so big.
So what would you have done?
What's going to happen? He wouldn't have done it with me. Putin wouldn't have done it with me, but that's the difference. Hard to explain that to people.